In the following slides, each of our group members have applied the theories of first language acquisition to our own experiences with first language acquisition.
Hi, this is Mara, and I'm going to talk about the theories that I related to most and that I thought explained language acquisition the most clearly. I believe I learned language mostly through the social interactionist approach. My parents say I was a very happy baby and laughed easily at anything, so I definitely responded to a lot of interaction and repeated what I heard. I think it helped to have older siblings because I would always have them to interact with. I actually also agreed with the behaviorist approach to language acquisition because the process makes sense to me. You know, imitation first, practice, and then feedback on how well you're doing, and then habit formation. My mom recalls correcting some of my verb usage until I got it right. Uh, Also, I actually took speech therapy for a little while in elementary school because I had trouble pronouncing certain sounds. I vaguely remember it, but my mom confirmed that I did for a little while, which is actually interesting since apparently no one could understand what my sister was saying when she was younger. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Hey there, I'm Jasmine, and growing up, I believe that both behaviorist and socialist interaction theory influence how I learn language. My first language is Spanish, and I definitely learned that by listening to my parents and those around me speak it. Almost everywhere I went, people spoke Spanish, so if I ever did encounter English, it wasn't enough to influence me. When I did go to kindergarten, that's when I started learning English. It was obviously influenced by those around me because no one at school was speaking Spanish, so my social interactions started to be in English. On the other hand, watching my siblings grow up and learn a language was a little bit different because at our house there is now a mixture of English and Spanish, as when I was growing up it was only Spanish. But now me and my younger sister, who's 17 years old, speak English around the house, so my siblings grew up with both English and Spanish in the house. For them, the norm is English because they go to school and interact with others in English and they hear us, the older siblings, also speaking it. So it's been a struggle to get them to speak Spanish because most of the behavior and interactions they have are in English. As of lately, we've been trying to speak to them in Spanish, but they still choose to respond to us in English. So they understand Spanish, but because of their social interactions, they rely so heavily on English communication. I think that they see another language as secondary. So this is a great example on how social interactions can influence language, especially when there's more than one language involved. Growing up, I don't remember, but seeing my siblings, I also think that developmentalist theory applies because with them going to school and just like hearing us talk, they start to figure out the meaning of words and start using them. Obviously, they use them incorrectly at first, but once they like figure out if they're using them right or wrong, they'll like kind of put it together. So I think those three are the main ones that apply to like my family and myself.
I am Macy Zahn, and I will be speaking about two language acquisition theories as they apply to me. My process of language acquisition aligns mostly with the social interactional theory. I grew up in an English-speaking family and was surrounded by primarily English speakers my whole childhood. I learned to talk through observing others talk to one another and mimicking what I observed. The emotional interactions mentioned in the social interaction theory is also important to mention because I believe I learned a lot about language through nonverbal cues. I learned that communication is more than language, as I learned how to communicate through social settings. The developmentalist theory also applies to me as I grew in my communicative abilities as my body and brain grew as well. The more I matured in my physical body, the more apt I became at my ability to communicate effectively. As my brain grew, so did my lexicon, understanding of grammar, verbal and nonverbal cues, and knowledge of social norms as it pertains to language. I acquired language as part of the process of overall development in the context of social interactions.
Hello, this is Casey, and as you can see, I'm just a bit of a physical learner. This is about when I was 4 years old, and I really didn't start speaking until I was 2.5 or 3. I was a late speaker because I acquired my first language mostly through socialization, and I used that innate ability to understand universal grammar to put together the types of sentences I wanted to say, but I didn't really go through the babbling or the early on usual signs of first language acquisition. I seem to have just used innatism to understand and develop the language of English and later applied it a little before this time into full coherent sentences that might have surprised the people around me because I was such a late speaker.
For me, I believe my environment shaped my language learning. I don't know if my birth mom spent a lot of time really talking to me, but I know that I paid attention to the conversations around me. I have two kids, and I feel like the talking I did to them, even if they couldn't respond yet, helped with their language acquisition. They also mimicked the adults or older children around them. I really don't think that language acquisition can be pinned down to one theory. As Peggy Marcy talks about in the language acquisition video, she uses the term eclectic, and I think that this better explains how the theories work better together, not just one separate theory being best. I think that as far as language acquisition is concerned, the connectionist theory and the behaviorist theories best explain how we acquire our language. The connectionists state that language acquisition is best learned through connections, whether it's watching TV, playing video games, or being immersed in a culture. Behaviorists suggest that imitation and repetition are ways that we learn language. Of course, any theory can have holes poked in them, but after going through the module and going over each theory, in my opinion, I believe that these two are the best to explain language acquisition and where I see them in my life or in my children's lives.